So today we're going to talk about solving linear equations. The first group of equations that we're going to talk about are one-step equations. So these are linear equations that only take one step to solve for x. If we take a look at the first one, it's x plus 6 equals 14. So back in the day when you were younger, your teacher would put a little box here and she would say, or he would say, what number would fit in that box to make that sentence true. So we're a little more sophisticated now, so we're going to use algebra to solve. So we're thinking about what is happening to x. It's telling me that x plus 6 equals 14. So I want to undo whatever's happening to x. So the opposite of adding 6 would be to subtract 6. With equations, you always have to balance both sides of the equation. So if I do it on the left side, I need to do the same thing on the right side. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. Over here, that cancels, and I'm going to be left with x. Bring down my equal sign. And then 14 minus 6 is 8. The same idea is true for the next equation, which is x minus 3 equals 2. So again, I want to balance both sides, and I want to get the thing away from x. I want to undo the thing that's happening to x. So instead of subtracting 3, I would have to add 3 to both sides. I'm left with x equals 5. So I can always go back and check my work, which is really a smart thing to do. So let's plug in our value for x for the first problem. So that's saying that 8 plus 6 equals 14. So I'm going to put a little question mark here because I want to make sure that that's true. 8 plus 6 does equal 14. So 14 equals 14, and I know I'm correct there. For the next problem, let's plug in our 5, or substitute our 5 for x. So that's going to say that 5 minus 3 equals 2. Well, 5 minus 3 is 2, so 2 equals 2, and that checks as well. When we're taking a look at one-step equations where we multiply, for instance, 4x equals 28, we would have to undo multiplication. So the opposite operation to multiplication is going to be division. So instead of 4 times x, we're going to divide both sides by 4. We need to balance our equations. So 4 divided by 4 is 1. We don't need to write a 1 as the coefficient of x, so we can just write x. Bring down your equal sign, and 28 divided by 4 is 7. We can check that by plugging in our value for x. 4 times 7 equals 28. That's what we're saying. And is that true? And yes, it is. 28 equals 28, and we're good. So when we're looking at the next problem, people get a little nervous because they see a fraction. We're really doing the same exact thing. We are dividing by 2/3 on both sides. But when we divide by a fraction, what we're really doing is we're multiplying by the reciprocal of that fraction. So instead of writing it this way, I like to write it as multiplying by the reciprocal. The reciprocal is just the flip of that fraction. It was 2 over 3, so now it's 3 over 2. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side and multiply by 3 over 2. So 3 times 2 is 6 over 2 times 3 is 6, which is just 1. So I really want to just cancel those out. I want it to be a 1 as a coefficient, and it is. For the other side, when we're multiplying a whole number times a fraction, sometimes people like to put that whole number over 1, which is totally fine. We're going to multiply 12 times 3, and we're going to get 36 over 1 times 2 is 2. So my final answer is going to be x equals 36 divided by 2, which is 18. So again, we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to check our work. 2/3 times 18, and we want to check if that's going to be equal to 12. So 2/3 times 18 is 12. So it checks out. Two-step equations are the same exact idea. We're always trying to get x by itself. So for this problem, we're going to need to move this 4 away from that x term. This 4 is a positive 4. So to undo adding 4, we would subtract 4. If I do it on one side, then I have to do it on the other side as well. Make sure when you bring down your 2x that you're bringing down the negative as well, because that's not just 2x, it's negative 2x. It has to keep the sign that's in front of it. And then we have 18 minus 4 is 14, and we brought down our equal sign in between. Well, now we're right back to a one-step equation. This is negative 2 times x. So to undo multiplying by negative 2, we would divide by negative 2. Negative 2 over negative 2 is going to be 1, so I'm left with x equals 14 divided by negative 2, which is negative 7. All right, so again, we should always check our work. Our original problem was 4 minus 2x, so instead of x now we're going to plug in or substitute our negative 7. And we're going to decide if that is correct, if it equals 18. So, 4, negative 2 times negative 7 is positive 14 equals 18. So 4 plus 14 is 18, and that equals 18. So again, that checks out, and we're good. Finally, we'll take a look at variables on both sides. Again, it's the same thing over and over and over again. We're trying to get all our x's on one side and all our number terms on the other side so that our final answer can be x equals some value. So let's move all of our x terms to the left-hand side. It really doesn't matter which way you move. I like to move them to the left because when we start talking about inequalities, it makes it a little bit easier to read and understand the answers. So I'm going to move this 2x to the other side of the equation by subtracting 2x. It was a positive. There's no sign in front of it, so we assume it's a positive. So we subtract 2x from both sides. I'm left with 3x plus 3. Bring down my equal sign. We canceled out our 2x term because we subtracted 2x. And now we're left with negative 12. Be careful to include that negative sign. That has to come down with the 12. Now we're right back down to a two-step problem that we just saw a second ago. We're going to move this positive 3 away from the 3x term. Minus 3 on this side, and then minus 3 on the other side. Again, that cancels and we're left with 3x. Bring down our equal sign. And negative 12 minus 3 is negative 15. Now we're right back down to a one-step problem. This was 3 times x, so the opposite of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3 on both sides. So 3 over 3 is 1, which leaves me with x equals negative 5. All right, last time for our check. We need to plug it into our original problem. So it was 5x, and we know our x is negative 5, plus 3 equals 2x, and again, we're going to substitute negative 5 for our x, minus 12. So let's see if that's going to be true. 5 times negative 5 is negative 25, plus 3 equals 2 times negative 5 is negative 10 minus 12. Negative 25 plus 3 is negative 22 equals negative 10 minus 12 is negative 22. So that checks, and we are good to go.